frustration. Oh, Ron Coleman. A frustration that's been bubbling tonight. I really appreciate the statements. Two frustrations, if you don't mind. One is I appreciate all the statements that climate change is the greatest challenge of the 21st century and so forth, but and I believe that the people in this room are with you in that, but you'd have a hard time believing that reading the election coverage of the last 2 weeks. So I don't know if it's just the Chronicle Herald that's to blame, or if it's something about the leadership which is not, why is this not shared by the leaders of the parties? And the second frustration is, how can we send the right signals, the price signals, which do change behavior, if the true costs of climate change, air pollution, resource depletion, environmental costs are not built in to prices? How can we promote local foods if the true price of transportation is not built in?
I think I counted 3 good questions in there. And Brendan, you can answer whatever you like in 45 seconds.
Thank you very much. Well, I can relate to your frustrations with the media, with the Green Party, as I had time getting in the media ourselves. Certainly, a large purpose of the Green Party right now in the present political situation, and us being in our infancy, only 3 years old, we're trying to get climate change on the political agenda. When you spoke about sending price signals, I think that goes back to the real cost of things and not looking at how much we are producing and what that costs, but a genuine progress index that can really assess us as a society that takes into our health and transportation. Thank you.
Jane.
Thank you. I frankly have no idea why the issue of climate change and environmental degradation and related issues are not being covered. I can't answer that. Certainly, as I've been going door to door in Peninsula Halifax, it's an issue that's on people's minds. It's certainly not the only issue, but I don't understand, frankly, myself, why it's not being covered. And certainly everybody here is here tonight because it's an important issue to them, and we have the press here tonight, so perhaps this convening of concerned citizens and the press will actually bring this issue to the fore.
Well, there's in fact an impressive turnout this evening. It clearly indicates the depth and width of the concern with the issue, and I myself have spent 35 years talking about it nonstop. But having talked about it for 35 years nonstop, I realize how difficult it is to motivate the general public to do this. Repetition is the basic teaching tool. That's why in grade 3 we all sat there and recited the 5 times table every time. So that finally, when you say it for the umpteenth time, people finally get it. And it takes a while, but I'm not going to stop. I have to tell you, Ron, I'm going to continue to say this year after year until we actually get the chance to make some real changes, because this is a very pressing issue.
And David.
Ron, I think it's an excellent question, and to be quite frank, I'm surprised that I haven't gotten more at the doorsteps on the environment. Maybe I'm a little biased because of my responsibilities, but I think that perhaps the fact that Nova Scotia passed the Environmental Goals and Sustainable Prosperity Act, which was, I feel, the most ambitious piece of legislation in the country, and it was so well accepted, was passed unanimously and very quickly, I would say, in the legislature. So there was no disagreement, and with what has flowed out of that, including the Climate Change Action Plan, I think there's an acceptance that we're on the right track. In fact, we had some good comments from the Ecology Action Centre afterwards. You did an open house, Mark, and I think it was all very positive. And I think that there may be an acknowledgement of that government's perhaps heading in the right direction. In fact, all parties.
Okay, any other comments? All right, we'll move on. And I'm not going to surrender the mic this time. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
My name is Dahlia Coleman, and my question is very short and simple. I would just like to hear what you propose from your parties to enable small farmers. How do you plan to encourage small farmers to survive, since their cost of farming outweighs the income that they bring in, and how, from each of you, do you intend to encourage small farmers in Nova Scotia?
Jane.
Well, that's a good question, and I'm afraid I'm not aware at the moment of anything in the platform that specifically addresses that issue. If I may, perhaps come back to that at a later point. I'm just not, I'm not in a position to answer your question.
Howard?
Okay, agriculture is in our platform, and I'd like to remind Jane that when the Liberals were the government, they sold off the grain centres in Nova Scotia to a company called East Coast Commodities that went bankrupt, taking the grain centre with them. So it's perhaps no wonder that you're not thinking about it too much. I have to say that it is central to our platform. We do want to see the survival of small, particularly small family farms. It's true that in many parts of the country it's big industrial enterprises in agriculture, but we do favor the small family farm, and we're going to try and find as many ways as we can, including buying local and local commodities and marketing boards, and supporting the transition to a variety of other crops to support them.
David?
Yeah, there's a breadth of support that's currently in place, both technical to also to help people with their business plans, and also financial. There's tremendous support from the Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board, which is very supportive of small farms, or any farms that can produce a viable business plan. But I think the one thing that you got to be careful of here is to make sure that you got the numbers right, because if you're launching something that's just not going to work in Nova Scotia, you're not going to be happy with your return. So we want to make sure that when people make those decisions, they're making good decisions that's going to give them a fair return in the long run.
Brendan?
Yeah, the Green Party of Nova Scotia believes that we should have a food policy council that can advise the Premier directly. Because food and agriculture, you know, it's not its own separate department. It affects our health, it affects our environment. It's a very inclusive topic. So I think that's the first step. Secondly, I think organic farming is becoming very popular now, and if we're talking about increasing the product value of agriculture products, organic certification is certainly something that small farmers can move towards, and it's actually much easier to seek organic certification as a small farm. So I think, as we spoke about earlier, we have to pressure the federal government in Agriculture Canada to do organic. I'm honest.
Any comments? Jane, do you have anything else you like that?
Just if I may, I mean, this doesn't completely answer your question, but if I may, one aspect on the expense side that the Liberal platform does address is the carbon capture. Our platform says that we would like to develop a steering committee with the agricultural sector and develop practices on carbon capture. This would be beneficial from a cost side to farmers, but that's only one small aspect of the question that you ask. It's, you know, if you're asking about promoting the future of the family farm, which I think you may be asking, that is just one element on the cost side. There are obviously other issues that need to be addressed, but I can't address that one tonight in the context of the debate tonight on climate change and energy policy. Thank you.
Well, I'm intrigued by the carbon capture and storage, which is what it's usually referred to as. This is being studied extensively in Alberta, but everything I've read, including long articles in The Economist last month, essentially suggested that the technology for carbon capture and storage just isn't there. It's way too expensive, doesn't seem to be working, and it's just one of those red herrings that's out there. I find that very peculiar.
If I could, I think when we talk about small farms too, I think that this does directly relate to climate change in the sense that riparian habitat, areas close to wetlands and streams and stuff like that, they're some of the most biologically diverse lands we have here in Nova Scotia, and